Welcome to Speaking of College of Charleston. Today we're talking about burnout in the world of social media, especially for the people behind the accounts we scroll through every day. From constant content demands to the pressure of being always on, it's a job that looks creative and exciting on the surface, but can come with real challenges behind the scenes. Our guest today is Kelley Cours Anderson, Assistant Professor of Marketing at the college, whose latest research explores what's driving social media burnout and what it reveals about work in the always-on digital world. Kelley, welcome to Speaking Of.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to jump right in with the questions. First off, what made you start looking into social media manager burnout, and why is it such a big issue right now?
Yeah. I mean, overall, it really bridges back to just our cultural need to look into digital well-being and social media well-being, which is something I've been researching with colleagues for years now. And we're probably talking 6+ years at this stage. But this particular project actually came from a student.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Kylie Pettit is one of our alumni. She now is a digital nomad, does social media and digital marketing for a living, travels the globe. But before she graduated, she had to complete a bachelor essay. She was one of my students in my social media class, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. But that class, I talk about social media wellness, and we take time and space for that. And when she needed to write her bachelor essay, she came to me and said, I want to write about this. This is what I want to do my project on. She went on an incredible internship in Italy, came back and said, okay, you threw that term out there. Now I understand it around this social media marketing burnout. And that's what I want to do my research on. So she was the driver of this project. We got it published with her in an academic
she's
article.
One of the three. Okay.
She is one of the four.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with, you have to have an academic institution association for the conversation.
Right.
Otherwise, she would have been on that paper as well. But yes, the academic journal itself, she is first author on that. This is her baby, and we are here to support it because this is something we're all passionate about as well.
We have such fantastic alumni.
Really
And
do.
I should have said from the beginning, we are talking about this because your article for the conversation is about to be published.
Correct.
And you have written for them previously, and they've done really well. And the conversation is a great platform to get our faculty's research out there to a much wider world.
Yeah, grateful for it.
Yeah, so you write about, I want to talk about, you write about the always on nature of social media jobs. What does that pressure actually look like in someone's day-to-day life? Yeah,
so I mean, we probably feel a little bit of this every day, and anyone who's in journalism gets this as well. Marketers and journalists, we're all kind of similar in that we are constantly on the search for the next project, constantly thinking about it. And I think anyone who's just passionate about their jobs probably can have some empathy for this too. But when we're thinking about a social media marketing manager, that means that they are on social media, on this algorithm-fed content spool all the time. So imagine waking up and your phone is buzzing, and then that is your first use. You're not even at work yet, but you're on. And so it starts before the day begins. If you're lucky enough to have a 9 to 5, let's be real, 9 to 6 or 8 to 6 or 7 day, you're on social media during that time period. And then you come home, and then you're on again. And so what we're seeing a lot of is, it's an everyday consumer might be spending 2 to 3 hours on social media. These individuals are spending 8 to 12 hours a day on social media. Yeah. And that's it truly is. You cannot disconnect. And this leads to this idea of ultimately, you go home and you're doing it for your own personal benefit, but at the end of the day, you're still constantly what we call, you're familiar with social comparison. This is a human nature thing. Well, now you bring it to the business sense and your social competitor comparison, right?
Yeah.
So you're constantly looking at other people's stories and seeing what are they doing? How could I make my content even better? And it just is, it's a spool. And it's a hamster wheel that's really hard to get off of until you just break down, and it leads to burnout.
And also, I'm just thinking about our own social media team. Also, part of many people's jobs, I would think, is you have to be on past 5 or 6 in the evening, because to monitor potential emergency situations or potential. I mean, the variety is wide, but to keep your eye out to make sure there's nothing coming up that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we saw it as well. If, I worked before coming to the college, I was in industry for a long time, and I worked at Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas, and we had a team of people, right? So they could actually be off and then other people could step in. And the reality is the majority of social media marketing managers don't have that luxury. They are usually a one-person team.
Exactly.
Maybe even if 3, but that means someone has to monitor after hours, on the weekends, especially depending on what industry you're in. And so that always on perpetuates from that too.
Right. Yeah. I thought you must have interesting stories from that job. I'm sure. So speaking of students, a lot of people want to work in social media. What do you wish they understood about the realities of the job before they get into it?
Yeah. It's one of those, I teach social media marketing teach social media marketing. And so for those students coming in, a lot of it is about trying to uncover, and make it realistic. And so there's a few different things obviously related to this is around well-being, right? And that is something that sinks into my classes. Outside of my classes, we have content that we dive deep into that as well. But it is understanding how to create that balance, how to create expectations for yourself, as well as set expectations up and outward so that you don't run into burnout. And so this burnout phenomenon is a really big piece of that, but that's not the only thing. A lot of it, I think that's surprising for many students, is how analytical it is.
Right.
In order to be successful in this industry, you have to be comfortable with numbers, at least a little bit. And AI is making it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But it is a
huge part of the job.
Huge part of the job, and being willing to test things and compare and try different things out. And so that's a big component. But the other piece of it, which actually does fall back into this piece, is there are a lot of hats. You know, one of the things many people don't realize, and even outside of marketing, people don't realize this, is as a social media manager, many times you are hired as an entry level, or let's be real, even before entry level, right, type of position. I know high schoolers that get these jobs. That means you have someone who is in charge of your brand identity. Yeah. Right? So they have to know how to communicate on behalf of your brand in one of the most visible places. So that's a lot of pressure on its own. You are creating content, you are managing things, you're creating campaigns, you're ultimately having, so the manager role, which was funny, it came up in this study too, is many people were like, I don't even know if this is the right title because I'm not managing people. But you wear so many hats. It is a manager role.
That's interesting.
It's just not necessarily, most people don't realize the expectations that are embedded in this type of position. And so their skills have to be broader as a result.
Right.
You might be lucky. Some people do get into roles where I get to just do customer service portion of social media, and I only have to do the content creation. But the realities of a true social media marketing manager is much broader. Crisis management, the list goes on. Right. So we actually have a visual in the academic paper that shows all of the different roles that these individuals
I can include that in the show notes so everybody can see that. And maybe this is changing. I didn't have that question prepared, but I wonder if, because I think, like you say, a lot of people have maybe one social media person, if they're a larger company, several, but I feel like that the position isn't totally valued in the industry yet, so it usually does fall to a very small team.
Yes.
And there may be the pay, we don't need to go on a tangent, but maybe the pay isn't as great, and they're expected to wear a lot of hats, and hopefully that's changing, and where people are seeing the value of social media, those roles.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm not sure I'm seeing much of that change yet. I think we might. I mean, I'm finally seeing, I was excited a couple of years ago and it sounds silly, but McDonald's was hiring a VP of marketing and influencer, or social media marketing and influencer marketing. And that's phenomenal because it shows that there's some legitimacy. But the majority of social media managers we chatted with are not finding that. Right. And so many times that's what leads. So our informants, a lot of them were saying that they don't have the confidence from their management, the expectations. I know I've had a lot of students come back and tell me stories of, I got this job, and basically the only expectation was that I make things viral. So I'm here to say that's just not how it works.
Exactly. But that is what so many people's expectations of the, and they don't, and then you show the metrics to show what you've built, and they don't really, a lot of higher ups don't really understand the metrics. Right. So all they want is go viral. Go viral,
because that's what that means. Yeah. So you're spot on, and we write about it in the paper, not as much on the conversation piece. But the academic article, we dive into that a bit around the systems are just not set up to really support these individuals yet.
Right. Yeah. I want to get back to, you touched on this a little bit before, but your research suggests that people can't log off to fix this problem. So what does help for individuals or organizations? And you talked about this a little, but I'd love to hear more to offer some positivity, some help.
And there's multiple facets, and we bucket it into 3 pieces for the larger piece, but what you'll see in the conversation is a couple of them. So there's certain things that you can do individually, right? So it's recognizing how to set boundaries, establishing boundaries. This is actually a great tool for any recent grad, right? For any of our upperclassmen, for them to learn how to set expectations and to communicate. And of course, that's easier said than done, depending on your managers, but that is a huge piece of it. So if you're setting those expectations early, that usually can make a lot of, it can help a ton, right? And the other piece is we talk about how technology can be utilized. So obviously AI is out there. There's some, it's also creating new challenges, but we recommend using AI to help with things like creating a content calendar, recognizing when those crises need to be identified versus feeling like you have to always be on. Use it for more of the efficiency and those things, not necessarily in lieu of creativity. We're seeing a ton of consumer pushback there. So don't think it's a really good substitute on that front. Obviously people are using it.
We really are. Talk a little bit more, because I think that's fascinating, the consumer pushback. So people want authentic.
They absolutely want authentic conversation, which is a lot of why I know in my classroom, we talk a lot about organic, and community building. And that's what consumers are looking for. That was the origination and the goals out of social media, is to create connection. But we see with algorithms these days, that's not really what's happened. And so many times what we now are being, I have other work that we're talking about, we're now commodified. It's really about our attention as a consumer, right? And so consumers are recognizing this. They're pushing back on this, which I think is a very healthy place to be.
I do too.
So the chase for the dollar, the chase for the like, is not necessarily going to be AI is not going to substitute for that. We're seeing, especially in Gen Z and our students and even young millennials, I would say, can spot AI from a mile away.
Oh, yeah. My kids say that to me all the time. I'll send them something and they're like, Mom, that is so clearly AI.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you know?
Yeah, they're done with the AI slop.
Yeah.
So content needs to be real. It needs to be rough. You even see it to a point where brands are trying to emulate what feels authentic, even though it's scripted, right? So, which makes it really challenging to differentiate as a consumer and then as a brand to know what to do. But where I think social media has a lot of promise and still some benefit is to create connections so that people can then be able to connect in person later on.
Yes.
Right. And so that's a lot of what, if you want your brand to be identified, use it as a conduit, not as the only tool.
Yeah.
And so
I like that. Yeah.
That again lends back to this idea of well-being, right? We finding that right balance with technology is a big piece of that.
Yeah.
And then you asked about, other things that help.
Right.
At the end of the day, we want to see more done to help educate the higher ups.
Right.
Right. And there are good groups. The AIC is an influencer council, right? We need that for social media marketing management as well. Really understanding what's the education these managers need? What are the education and the tools that hiring managers and executives need to be able to support these people in their jobs? That is where I'm passionate.
Because you said in your article, I don't think we said this yet, but didn't you cited a statistic about burnout rate? The rate is really high, right?
It's really high. Yeah, 40% of social media marketing managers are looking to get out of the profession in the next
40%.
40%. Yeah. And then we dived deeper.
And then when they leave, that none of us know how to do their job, so we're then you're scrambling.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And then it takes forever for someone to come on and get onboarded, and that's expensive. Yeah. Right. After
and didn't you also find that it was like the typical time was about 2 years?
Yeah, it's pretty low. Yeah. It's very low. It ends up being this entry-level job. And I used to sell it that way. Yeah. Right? To many students, this is a great entry-level job so that you can kind of climb the ladder and maybe go a different direction, even if you don't want to stay in social media. Well, half of those people are getting out of marketing altogether. Yeah, which is not really where we want to, it's not the best entry point anymore. And when it could be, it's still really... It really could be. Yeah.
And it's all changing so fast.
It is changing so fast.
But why should people outside of, you and I are in the marketing world, but why should people outside of marketing care about this? What does burnout tell us about our broader relationship with technology? I mean, it's obvious, but what else can we discern from your findings?
Yeah, I mean, I think we tackled some of those where this is, if you are not in marketing but in a business position or any other hiring position, it's expensive. Help with this turnover, help with mental health. This is a real challenge for us.
Because it really isn't just social media manager burnout. I mean, this kind of burnout, this phenomenon can be much broader. Everybody daily usage burnout. Yeah,
absolutely. And so some of our work before this piece was just on social media wellness and recognizing that as an everyday consumer, we get burned out. Right. And so I think that's the important piece to keep in mind as well is it's not just when you're consuming. So if you're a consumer, right, and you're going through your feed and you're going through this content, I would hope that something like this actually creates some additional empathy for the people who are putting this together. Right. Right. So what are they going through? Many times we see comments that come through different things and they forget, and it's an everyday phenomenon of social media, right? But you forget there's a human on the other side. Right. And so hopefully this piece starts to help build that bridge, build that empathy for recognizing this work, and a lot of it's very invisible work, invisible labor that happens and is highly underappreciated in their position, right? And as well as out of their position. So many of going back to what we were starting to talk about earlier, many of our informants actually said they were embarrassed to tell people what their job was. Really? Because people don't see it as a real job. Right. When it's actually...
And there's not a lot of respect for that work.
Not at all.
I meant to ask you about that. Was this like a survey, or how did you reach out to people? Who were you talking to get all of this?
This was qualitative. So it was interviews with active social media marketing managers. Yeah. And then we did additional rounds later on with groups of people
And this isn't higher ed. This was...
No, not higher ed. Usually broader. Many people, it was really fascinating because we got to follow some of these individuals a little bit over time and to see their career path or have them reflect on their career path where they started as, maybe working for a small business and then ultimately moved into leading their own group.
Right.
Because they realized they weren't being respected in their positions.
Yeah.
So now you've got some really great little agencies and consulting groups around this. And I think we're going to continue to see some of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to help hopefully that'll help solve some of that, where you at least have teams, these agency teams that are helping to facilitate it, that can manage it within.
Yeah.
That have a full understanding
a team.
of
That's
the
key,
work.
The key word, a team. Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fantastic that you're doing this work that is extremely relevant, and I'm sure it's always changing, and I'm sure you're very busy with your research, trying to stay on top of it, and you're talking to students every day. So, thank you for coming in and talking to us about your work. And I'll include a link to Kelley's article in the conversation in the show notes, as well as any other information that we talked about in our interview. I'll put that in our show notes. So thank you, Kelley.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening to this episode of Speaking of College of Charleston with Kelley Cours Anderson. If you like the episode, please help us reach more audiences by sharing it with a friend or leaving a review. And as I said, for show notes, you can visit the College of Charleston's news site, the College Today, at today.charleston.edu. And you can find episodes on all major podcast platforms. And if you're curious to know more, go to charleston.edu. Thank you for listening.